It used to be the internet was a place you could be anonymous and it was safe to like research things and no one would know. But now everywhere you go, you're being followed by marketing trackers, and now they're actually asking for your driver's license in some place.
Or credit card.
Or credit card.
Verified by a credit card. But again, you can also grab your parents' credit card.
Sure.
There's never a case where as a smart teenager, these sorts of barriers would have stopped me.
Welcome to AI for Your Business with Modern Logic. We are your hosts, Andy and Dustin.
All right, so today we dive into a episode of Special Victims Unit. A listener asked us to dive in and look at this episode and talk about how realistic the portrayal is. So this is a bit of a different theme for us. Let us know if you like it or dislike it, but there are some takeaways I think all of us can take away, both from a business side and as just users of this incredibly powerful technology. If you need help using this incredibly powerful technology in your business, we help with that. So you can go to modernlogic.io and scroll down to the contact form. We're happy to have a conversation. What we primarily focus on is helping businesses get beyond just what the ChatGPT front end can do for you, really dig into hands-on pragmatic solutions to solve manual and repetitive tasks in your business, remove them, and save you hours and hours of time.
Today's a special episode. I'm hitting play right now. We're watching and commenting live to an episode of Law & Order Special Victims Unit because a listener told us there is some great AI stuff in this episode. So it's just starting. This is season 27, episode 4, called Clickbait. And it starts off with, oh, wow, a bus just got crashed into. We're going to watch it for a while and we'll check back in when the AI.
What I love about these shows is just how wrong they are most of the time on technology.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Despite the fact that they can afford the best consultants in the world.
Okay, I can already see this. They just showed a teacher and all the students were filming the teacher with their iPhones. So I wonder if that's going to play later.
First of all, most teachers are young people these days, or a lot of them, and they freak out just as much as everyone else, right? So this is a very put together teacher I'm seeing here.
Yeah, he had her ducks in a row, that's for sure.
Also, these children are way more put together than my experience. Maybe the next generation does better in emergencies than mine.
Yeah, definitely pull your iPhone out whenever there's an emergency. That's step 1. Fire hydrant or extinguisher, that's step 2.
Yeah.
All right, now we've transitioned to some kind of dining room scene. Are you seeing this? I'm guessing this is the main character for the show, although I've never watched it before, but I'm guessing this is the chief investigator.
So this is her and her boss meeting over
this
lunch.
Must be the season B plot drama, not relating to AI.
So she's trying to promote her. This reminds me of when I try to promote an engineer into management. I just want to write code.
Yeah. I just want to go investigate.
Talk to human beings.
I want to go investigate the bits and bytes. I don't want to be a manager. Yeah, I don't know who you're talking about. Every time I watch a TV show where the people are eating, I had to do 10 takes. That is not tasty food anymore.
I watched a show yesterday where they were drinking stew and out of a bowl, and then later you see the bowl and it's completely empty.
Okay, so one of the students on the school bus was gravely injured.
I think she had a miscarriage, of just judging from the intro. Nope. Ruptured fallopian tube.
Oh, yeah. The child at school was pregnant. Drama. Okay, so far, what do we know about AI in this episode? Not much.
This is what the Special Victims Unit covers is mostly sexual crimes and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So that doesn't surprise me.
So
Ice-T is still on this?
That's pretty impressive.
So she doesn't have a boyfriend. Ooh, I like that art in the hospital, actually. The fact that they're already involved is probably... I'm far away from the teenage years, but I don't know that in the hospital you call the cops in immediately.
Yeah, they're compressing the timeline because we need to get to the AI. The principal's being obstructionist.
Shocker. So far, this is living up to my extremely high bar of what I
It
was
is.
expecting from the SVU universe.
Is there a 2x mode on this thing?
Apologies to anyone that watches SVU. Not my bag.
The dickweeds.
Did they say dickweeds
Have you
still?
gotten to that yet?
Yeah, I just got to it. I need to get myself a pink, what do they call those? The coat that you wear with a suit. So they see these photos of this student with this teacher and they immediately assume they're actual photos. They look photoshopped to me. I wonder if
Yeah,
they actually were.
they were just pinned up on a board.
You can imagine the damage to someone that this stuff could do. You think about it in terms of politics and the global scale, but digging down into image generation at a high school level.
It is a real issue. There's been reported news of image generation being used to basically make fun of people. It's going back several years now. So they've drawn from real news events to come up with this plot. The question
So
is,
far, it's
yeah. So far, it's not even really AI. Someone could have just photoshopped those. Like the original deepfakes were just manually created. Okay, so now they're showing these photos to the parents. So who was taking the pictures? They never asked. There should be a third person there investigating, right? If there's pictures
the
of a high school student and a teacher together.
yeah, or selfie stick or whatever. But yeah, how did they get these photos? They're
They
just
were
students
found
passing them
inside
around, and they
lockers
somehow.
of some other students who were obnoxious, I think was the connection. So we've now established that the student was taking private lessons with a music teacher. And there's these photos of them together, inappropriate photos together. So now the police are going to the music teacher and looks like they're going to arrest him. He's in the middle of teaching class, of course. Promotional content provided by Apple. I see a room full of iMacs and MIDI keyboards.
I
And
immediately have a solution to this. Just he just has to take his shirt off because in the photos he's absolutely ripped. And I'm guessing the AI just
a
interpreted
typical
him as
music teacher is
absolutely
not
ripped.
ripped.
He takes the shirt off and he's flabby, and they're
Oh.
like, "Oh, it's not our guy." End of episode.
Also, I love the gratuitous slam the teacher against the lockers moment when they cuffed him. That was really good.
Yeah, even though he has no idea what's going on.
You might.
No, the twist will be he actually is the perpetrator.
Let's see, now time for a commercial break. So far, not a lot of AI, although we're setting up a couple of the elements. So to recap, there was the students holding the iPhones getting good pictures. So that establishes that they all can take pictures of things, including teachers. And we have photographs, supposedly incriminating photographs. But I think the twist is going to be, are those actual photos or have they been doctored or possibly fully generated?
AI generated. Yeah, that would be my guess as well, is that we're going to find out that they're AI generated and the implications of AI generation on the meaning of truth in this society. Because you see with Sora 2 now, you have these AI generated videos that in some ways are indistinguishable. Some of them are, some of them aren't, but we're going to get to the point where they really all are.
Yeah.
And you can tell whatever story you want about your enemy. And if I remember my high school experience, teenagers in particular are not always the most discerning about the implications
Oh,
of the
absolutely.
things that they're putting out into the world on the people around them. In fact, they can be imagine what bullying becomes like when it's not just photos that are taken, but photos that are made to tell the story that you want to tell about your classmates that then everyone else believes.
Yeah.
So it's like society is in for a major change from that
And
perspective. And Photoshop, I mean, at least required skills to get to that point.
yeah. And what reminds me, a friend of mine was working on something called the Content Authenticity Initiative, which Adobe is part of, a bunch of other businesses. And they're trying to establish a cryptographic way of verifying that content is real. But of course, that's only for people who are invested in showing that the content is real, like journalists. But in a situation like this, that a tool like that wouldn't probably help you at all.
And we could end up to the point where every camera has to put a cryptographic signature in every
Right.
photo that it takes for us to prove. And I don't know that consumers would be game for that, right?
Yeah.
Because of privacy. Then your photos of anything, including encounters with police or whatever in countries where that's not necessarily safe, would be traceable.
That's one of the downsides. I think this is interesting how the police here have no skepticism that these photos could be fabricated. They're like yelling at the teacher. They're slamming his face on the table. It's conveniently,
they're trying to get a rise out of him and see.
Yeah,
This is
conveniently, of course,
classic
the
good
student
cop, bad
is
cop.
comatose, so she can't testify as to what happened.
You got to imagine a real special victims unit version. I don't know what they call them in real life. Sex crimes unit would be very aware that, or even inundated in fake stuff at this point.
Although, at the other hand, there are a lot of terrible people, so they're used to seeing people who do
Yeah.
terrible things and then lie. So I can buy it. I can see both sides. Of course, it's a drama, so they're hyping it up. But yeah, I think the teacher's innocent.
So they're going to hold him for 24 hours.
Wow, that's intense.
Is Taru the IT guy? And my guess is, or gal? I'm guessing the IT person is.
Or is that the acronym for? All right, so now we're getting to some tech stuff.
They're going to review the photos. It's response unit's an acronym. Okay, we got the nerds on screen, our people.
Oh my God. Have you gotten to the console prompt here?
Just about to get to it. She's got 3 screens, which is better than the last time I saw this.
Oh my God. Okay, so much to unpack here. All right, I'm just going to back this up and look. So we have to go zoom in on the code that she's writing in her terminal just because it's too fun.
Okay, so do read equals false, debug reading or ending. This is some pretty meaningless.
Okay, so you're right. That's probably not meaningful to look at the code, but so what they did
What I love about it is it doesn't appear to be doing anything. It's like it's a nothing burger.
all right, so
But it looks like real code. So more power to them. They at least did that.
So interesting. She finds repeating patterns in an image, and from that is able to deduce that it's AI generated. I would actually postulate that for generated content from AI, you're less likely to see repeating patterns as you would, say, with someone who had used Photoshopped something. Because with Photoshop, there's a tool called Clone Tool, where you might see the same image content repeated across an image. And in fact, there are tools out there that will detect that. And early on, that was one of the ways to detect that a photo had been altered because certain patterns would show up over and over again.
Yeah, I think it'd be more likely that between the different photos that they have, that they're looking at the freckles, that the freckles would be inconsistent across those photos. Because obviously your freckles aren't moving around on your skin very often, but it's just guessing if it hasn't been fed a full body image of someone that they have freckles based on their complexion. And in this case, she's white and she's got freckly skin. And
Absolutely.
So there's almost no way the AI is going to get that. And so that's what you'd be looking for.
For AI, I'd be looking for other artifacts. Like the classic one would be like a 6-fingered hand. Now, that was the thing from a year or two ago. AI is much better at drawing hands naturally, but certainly it will still have problems with, was the earring on the left ear the same as the earring on the right ear? Or when you're looking at a set of images like this, typically the AI generators aren't designed to build sets of images that go together. So not just freckles, but any other inconsistency across the set of images. Is her hair the same length in all the photos? The shape of eyebrows the same?
This makes it really problematic when you're using it for legitimate business purposes like marketing, because you want your trademark and your logo to always be consistent. You want certain ways you represent yourself to always be consistent. And this is for the same reason that LLMs hallucinate, these diffusion models, which are a similar kind of concept that came out around the same time. They hallucinate these details because they don't have the full details, or they've lost the context and they've decided that they need to invent it. And so creating that consistency requires real work in engineering. And I think the other thing is that the way these models work, to the few episodes ago when we were talking about how they're trained, they're not designed to leave like a black space if they don't know what's supposed to be there. They're always going to invent something. So if you have a person standing in a frame in front of a desk and they move, it's going to hallucinate what's on that desk because it doesn't know what was on that desk. So it's going to assume this is stuff that could be on a desk. And then they move back into the frame and they move to the left, and it might think, okay, I need to hallucinate what's on that desk. It's not going to go check, unless you really work hard to make it, the previous frame generation to say, this is what was on the desk in the last thing. So you'd see the things in the background be inconsistent as the characters move through it.
Another one that I just thought of is AI has been trained on photos that are largely well composed. So the subject matter is in the center of the frame. It features things well proportional. You think about the golden ratio and all those things because photographers pay attention to that when they're composing photographs. But these were supposedly more like snapshots. So real snapshots wouldn't be perfectly artistically composed, all of them.
Right.
But an AI typically would just create composed images because that's what it's trained on. So that would be another kind of indicator. I guess what I'm getting at is the specific things I called out, like the freckles, aren't really how you detect AI images, but they are correct that there are ways to detect AI generated images. There are telltale marks that would be very hard to hide. So if you're attempting to commit crime and use fake AI
Don't
generated
commit
images
crimes
as
with
evidence,
these things, folks. Okay?
you're not going to get away with it.
You will get caught. You're making
right.
it easy. I will say, things have gotten so much better, even in a year, that you can see that the end state of these things is videos and images that are so consistent across a photo set that anyone but technical experts can't tell the difference. And I think already they're to the point where just visually it's hard in a lot of cases to tell the difference. And at some point the technical expertise required to tell the differences will be higher and potentially get to the point where it's either not possible or very difficult. And your average police department is not going to have those resources.
Alternatively, because while AI is advancing the generation front, AI is also advancing the coding and technical capabilities front. It might be you can just drop an image onto your favorite LLM and it'll tell you, oh yeah, that was AI generated.
This is the new cryptography race, right?
It is.
Like you have the cryptography people and you have the people trying to break the cryptography.
It's the Busta.
Yeah, exactly. That's a reference to a really old film. But yeah, it's the Busta. My Busta busts your Busta and vice versa.
Until I get a better
and adding words, and it gets more ridiculous as time goes on. So we're going to end up that way with these image processing. All right, let's see about this.
Yeah, let's keep going. So then they somehow were able to backtrack where the images were generated.
So they found a digital fingerprint in the photo.
Not implausible. There are tons of fingerprints. Getting back to the IP address, probably it would involve a subpoena of the company that ran the server.
Right. They're just images have metadata in them, usually around where it was taken, what camera was used, and that helps the software that made the Photoshop work with the photo. And so the vast majority of photos do have that digital fingerprint. And if it was used and generated, it is very plausible that the website that generated it would have put in the either it was EXIF or IPTC metadata.
Or XMP. Come on, don't forget about XMP.
Or XMP, Adobe's format. This is actually a really good episode for us because me and Andy used to work at Adobe on digital imagery. And then they would have to then subpoena the website because the IP isn't going to be embedded in the photo. It's going to be on the logs of the website. It's not
implausible they can figure out what AI model had generated the content. And from that, get back to the company that was responsible.
And the company that generated it would obviously be, in most cases, invested in it not being used to generate illegal or illicit content. And so this is all plausible.
They're going to the company and they're at some house with kids and skateboards on the floor. Oh, I see. He started his
he got laid off and he started a startup.
Okay, so we're in the home office with a pile of computers and
Okay, this is the most plausible thing so far in this episode is that he's set up in
from home.
Old room making his own startup with all these computers plugged in. The cable snarl is totally legitimate.
Oh, so they came right out and accused him of child pornography. Oh.
Hold on. So this is the classic tool makers. Tools are being used to commit crimes. Okay, so he just said AI uses up a lot of data, so we have to optimize our storage space. And that's BS in this case. He can't share the logs because they're taking up too much data and he's
That's
purged them. That's
baloney.
not the kind of space AI takes up. AI takes up memory, and then there's storage. Those are two different things.
Also, the user logs are tiny amount of
Minuscule.
data compared to image data, which he's generating and generating a lot of it.
There are sites that will remove the user logs due to privacy, and those are mostly security sites that help people in maybe third world countries or countries with totalitarian regimes communicate. And so they have a very privacy. So that is,
But
but that's
that
not
is
what's
a
happening
feature set
here.
that you have to work really hard to build. And this
Yeah,
is a one person startup. And the last thing on his mind is scrubbing his logs to make sure there's no trace of the users who used it.
right.
If
He would
anything,
absolutely,
he is mining his user activity because that's how you improve your app and do more
yeah.
marketing for them to understand what they're interested in. So his server is going to be absolutely chock full of data about his users. There's just no way that he'd be like, oh, I don't have any data who use my service. That's baloney. In fact, he probably has copies of the images that were generated stored on his computers as well. I think it's also funny that the police are standing in his home office asking permission when they really what happens is they get a subpoena and they would just show up and just take all the computers.
Yeah. And they'd bring it over to their Taru people and they'd rip them apart. And
Because when you tip your hands to a computer person, he might have an emergency procedure. If he was worried about this, that would destroy all the data.
but again, I think most startups are not, most startups are running hot and fast and they're not going to,
They won't have that either. Yeah.
yeah, they'll just happily hand the information over because that's the right thing to do. And they don't want to be in the news for this, for something like this.
Oh,
So
okay.
now
I
she's
think
talking
it's
to the
really funny.
victim.
The police are like threatening him and blustering and saying, give us a call. I just don't really see. But I'm not a legal expert. So technically, they could do that if they wanted.
But now they've somehow got off the phone that this high school girl is now being arrested for doing this image generation. This like gets at like the legality of all these image generation things is it's a really interesting legal space that people are still figuring out. But on the surface, these are illegal image, especially of underage people. They're illegal to generate. But now you have a teenager that's doing it and sending it to other teenagers, and what are the implications of that, right?
And also, you may have noticed there's a lot of discussion about websites are now being required to verify the age of users so that tools that could potentially be generating or presenting adult content aren't accessible to children. The interesting thing about that is it has really maybe unintended or possibly, if you're a conspiracy theorist, intended consequences on user privacy because now all these websites are going to know who you are all the time. It used to be the internet was a place you could be anonymous and it was safe to like research things and no one would know. But now everywhere you go, you're being followed by marketing trackers, and now they're actually asking for your driver's license in some place
Or credit card. A
or
lot of
credit
them will
card.
verify by credit card. But again, you can also grab your parents' credit card. Or
Sure.
there's never a case where where as a smart teenager these sorts of barriers would have stopped me.
Oh, I know.
You know,
Absolutely.
especially as a programmer who was coding for fun in high school, I would have known immediately how to get around these. And so it doesn't stop the broader conversation, which is where do we draw the line between children learning and making mistakes and adults committing crimes, and then on especially with these kinds of extremely powerful technologies now where you can just generate anything that you want that could have a big impact. That like they're just about, I'm a little ahead of you here to talk about how another teenager took their own life because of faked social media content. And we're seeing this stuff happen. This isn't just SVU, this stuff is happening, and AI is not helping those scenarios. It's making it much worse because even if the teenager knows they weren't in, say, some photos got shared that put you in an embarrassing situation, you weren't in that situation, in your mind, everyone else doesn't know you weren't in that situation.
Yeah.
So the social impact is very real.
Yeah, absolutely. The social impact is real. I definitely agree with you there. And in terms of the technology this show is showing, they've simplified a lot of it, but I haven't seen anything really that's totally wrong. Like the ability to like take someone's phone and from that get a lot of data about what they've been doing, totally true. There are so many digital breadcrumbs on think about your footprint. It's like in the real world, you leave footprints and fingerprints. In the digital world, you leave even more.
Yeah. Unless you're a sophisticated, like, overseas operation, then you can strip a lot of that. And I think we're going to see, obviously, you're going to have varying degrees of sophistication, but you're going to have really sophisticated criminal outfits that are generating, for instance, like phishing scams or videos that you are indiscernible from your grandma calling and asking for your credit card. And so it's going to be we're all going to have passwords we share with each other. Don't transfer money unless I say coconut in the sentence or whatever. We already have cases where people are getting phone calls with auto-generated voices.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so now they're showing an app that looks like he's running on a tablet that uses AI to basically deepfake and alter a photograph taking clothes off of someone. So that's interesting in a couple ways because it's not likely to be an app on like Apple's platform or even Google's platform because they pretty aggressively curate the apps that they allow onto their platform. And that would be something that would violate Apple's terms of use. It wouldn't be that easy to access as an app because Apple and Google are doing a good service to our community by keeping that basically not useful, kind of tasteless tool out of the hands of users. Not just underage users, they're keeping it away from everyone. But you could build a website that did that, and since we have web browsers that are not curated by Apple and Google, you could still get it that way. And it's not implausible to think that someone would create an AI tool that would take a scene and alter the clothing that people are wearing in that scene. That is possible right now.
Yeah, this software exists. I do think that there's two tiers, right? You can definitely, I think, go after these deep fake software creators if their software is being used to generate illegal things. I am definitely strong, but I'm pretty sure the legality of allowing deepfakes to be created on your platform and especially hosted on your platform is something to go after. The frontier models in the stable diffusion space or the image diffusion space, which is the class of image generators, you're not going to be able to go after those technologies, just like you can't go after Photoshop and Adobe for creating images that may or may not be illegal. And so ultimately the genie isn't going back in the bottle here. It's going to be a game of whack-a-mole with people using these models and putting these websites up to do this generation. We should definitely go after the bad actors in that space. Like they just showed something called Nude AI, and it's literally designed for deep fakes, and that's what they're selling.
Right.
We can put that website out of business, but the technology they're using, they're not going to be inventing their own diffusion model.
That is actually hard because
right?
They can move those servers to other countries, and they're still accessible on the internet here. So the extent of the law to reach in and stop those things is difficult, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't try. So yeah, if someone's running a business out of their house where they are selling the ability to make nude images of real people, yeah, then it's not a technological solution to stop that. It is a law enforcement action to stop it.
So they're now talking about finding these websites for each illegal, and he's basically saying that isn't helpful.
I think if you find them enough, it would put him out of business because this guy created this business to try to monetize creating nude images, and if you create enough financial disincentives to do that, that will shut it down. But like I said, someone could always move that business to a country where there's no ability to enforce that, and then now what are you going to do?
Well, and I think the reality is a lot of these startups are trying to do the work to make this technology safe, because there's plenty of use cases where it's a perfectly legal use case, but some user of yours has a malevolent intent when they log in, and they're basically ascribing that malevolent intent to this individual creator we saw, and they're going to arrest him. And this is all new law.
I think you're right. It is a new frontier, but I think they're also mischaracterizing the malevolence. I don't think the AI creator is going to be like, I really want people to be able to create deep fake nudes of children. That's a ridiculous business proposition. He's probably thinking, I don't want people to do that, but how do I stop them? And that's really what OpenAI and these
really hard problem
grappling with this. So they actually will put extra steps in their models that after it's done generating, kind of look back at it and say, all right, characterize what is this image that I've created? Let's look at it. And if it comes back characterized as it's got a nude image and it's got underage image, they'll actually then just take an extra step to just blank it out. Say, no.
Well, and there's a lot you can do in the training data. Just do not give it training data.
Yes. But it turns out on the training data, if you scrub it too much, it's okay, there's no new images in our training data set, then the images that get created of clothed people end up looking wrong. It turns out there's something about the model needs to actually understand human physiology to properly create realistic images of people, which is also very
It's a really interesting blurry line, and we're not just in legality here, we're in a research space that is rapidly evolving, that we don't have hard solutions for these problems yet. We need more R&D to figure out how to do this correctly.
Okay, now they're talking about the impact to the student and the teacher who was falsely accused, and both of them are experiencing a lot of trauma, and that is absolutely legit real. And so I think one actually good service of this episode to the public at large is to build awareness of, just because you see an image on the internet doesn't mean that is something that actually happened. And obviously, we've been dealing with that for as long as Photoshop's been around, even longer, because you could used to be able to do this stuff in the darkroom. But it's just so easy now to make really good looking images. You have to look at the source.
Was there an intention to the posting? Is it a reliable source that we can trust? And even then, those sources can be duped.
Yeah.
We probably have to approach anything we get that's digital with a degree of skepticism.
Yeah.
That's increasing every day, these technologies exist.
Absolutely. Look for multiple sources. Look for, is it a verifiable source? Is it actually like a journalism site as opposed to just some random person on social media?
And this has implications beyond illegality. Think about brand and trademark protection and the kinds of things that your competitors might be able to do with your logo. And now we're into copyright law, which is another space that IP law in general is behind where these technologies are.
Yep.
So it turns out this guy who was in the apartment was running this nude AI site. So I was thinking it was a separate site, at which point I'm like, okay, one bad actor does not all bad actors. And he's demonstrating a use of it where he's making the judge like celebrating, and I'm like, it's literally called nude AI, man.
If it's generating content, I'm really trying to think, is there any plausible, legit use for this? I'm not interested in running a business like that, but clearly a lot of money has been made around pornography and so forth, and you could argue that some of it is maybe legal or ethical if it was done by consenting adults. So creating images like that aren't of real people, that are just totally fake.
But I think it's obvious that a website that takes an image of someone and makes them nude is...
And that's the difference here. It's not...
If you have access to that person, you can do that without the AI, right?
It's very
this
difficult.
Is gonna be, the majority of use cases are going to be illegal.
Yeah. But on the flip side, OpenAI just announced Sora 2, where it literally scans your face and then puts you into video content. And the only thing that's missing is they've attempted to put filters that you can't ask it to make a picture or a video of you being naked in that scene. The filters would block that. But if they hadn't done that extra work to block that,
right,
sure as anything, what this site is doing, you would be able to do today using one of the largest AI providers out there. That's the only difference.
See, now they're showing the ads he uses to drive traffic to the site. And yeah, this guy knew what he was doing.
So he clearly had a business model of, are you infatuated with that person? Here you can make a picture of them naked without their consent. Yeah.
Which is illegal.
Yeah. Yeah. And also gross. Come on.
Yeah. This episode's been much more plausible than I thought it was going to be, honestly.
I know. Even the home office. I think you might think, oh, this is all happening on those computers in his office. That's not how AI works. He is going to use a major cloud provider to power this platform. So something like Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud. and he
And
had.
they would shut him down in a
That's another vehicle that the government would have to put this out of business. So he would have to physically buy servers and put them in, I don't know, I'll make up some country where there's no extradition, and run them on this island in the Pacific. That's because if he runs it in the US, they would get seized or shut down by the provider. Or if he runs it in any modern country that the US has extradition treaties with, it would get shut down. So that is another legal and international legal way that they could leverage to keep this stuff from happening.
And they just made the argument that if someone draws or paints an illegal picture, you don't arrest the paintbrush. And I think to a large degree, I'm empathetic to that argument, but I also believe that as creators, we have to look at the intentionality around the tools that we're building and how they can be used, and at least take reasonable efforts to safeguard them against illegal use and against even immoral use, even if it's legal. Most creators that I know believe that strongly. A paintbrush, sure, because that's a very generic tool. If I paint something that then causes an issue later, obviously the paintbrush provider isn't doing anything. But in this case, the person has created a website that specifically makes that 80% of the use cases are going to be illegal or at least immoral.
And again, that's not a technical concern, but it does show as a business owner, if people are using your services to illegal ends, you are in some ways responsible, especially if you did nothing to stop it. Yeah, so that's pretty interesting. Oh wait, so now
they're going to the data center for some reason.
Okay. He's claiming that an image generation model that's trained on nude images and separately trained on images that include children, it will be able to synthesize nude images of children from it, which probably is true-ish.
Yeah, I think that's probably true, especially if it's getting. He also says he's not thinking. They don't think, and that's true too. So they'll regurgitate whatever you ask for.
I think the other aspect of this is to effectively train an image generation model, you have to put so many images. It is beyond the capability of your team of humans to actually look at all those images and verify that the content you're pouring into it is appropriate. What these companies have done is basically siphon every image that's ever been taken anywhere and fed it in. And unfortunately,
and his postulation is you take a nude image and a non-nude image of someone ultimately, and making those two things combine is something that the AI can do, and that's absolutely the case. Right. It might, I think the further you get from those source images, the more likely you are that it's going to hallucinate and make mistakes and make things look weird. But as these models get more sophisticated and get more data, that happens less and less.
Oh, I missed it. What did the jury find?
So they found him guilty, but then the judge is letting him off because the laws...
Oh, interesting.
...don't support...
So he's nullifying the guilty verdict for the tech people who allowed this.
Yeah, and I would imagine we're going to see some of this, right? Because the laws are pretty significantly behind these kinds of technologies, and I'm sure these are smart legal departments, and they can, the police and FBI and so on can probably figure out ways to make a lot of these cases stick, but the businesses in the middle who are in the gray area definitely have some more than they probably should, because there's no regulations for this stuff yet.
So did we say what happened? The judge basically overturned the verdict because he
did.
So that's interesting. So the authors at SVU are basically telling the public, hey, you need to talk to your legislators and make sure that the statutes are up to date so that the new kinds of crime that are empowered by advances in technology are actually criminal, and that these ne'er-do-wells aren't getting off scot-free for doing toxic things like that to our society. That's pretty interesting.
And now the police guy's like, I've used ChatGPT for therapy, which don't do that.
Oh, God.
But also something a lot of people...
Yeah, agree. That's a risky proposition. ChatGPT might seem like a useful therapist, but also it can very easily go down the rails with you and End up giving you bad
and
advice.
hallucinate something that gives you some bad advice.
Yeah.
On the same side, what's the difference between that and using it to improve your personal productivity? There's a fine line. It's one heck of a tool, but it's one that you have to
You have
be
to maintain the
aware
upper
is,
hand. You need to be the
yeah,
expert. Anytime you
you need to,
turn the relationship around and you say to AI, hey, I'm like stumbling in the dark here, tell me what to do, it's essentially going to make up a random answer just like that magic 8 ball. But when you are the expert and you're just trying to get efficiency out of the system, oh, this is so dull. I do this day and night. Can you do this for me? And then it does it, and you're like, okay, thanks. I checked it over, and yeah, you were following the pattern I established. Great.
I think the assumption should be that if you're not, this gets back to other things we've said, if you're not an expert, then you're not capable of being the human in the loop for a lot of these things. So if you're using it to talk, to ideate around something that you don't have expertise on, your assumption should be that at best you're getting an average or medium level answer, and that can be used as a jumping off point, but should be both verified and then worked through with, for example, therapy with an actual therapist who's a professional, as opposed to just taking it at its surface level, because by and large these things are averaging engines and you're going to get an average solution out of most of them anyway, right? They are getting more sophisticated, but I think ultimately if you're using them for, ask yourself how important the answer it gives you is to your business, your personal life, and if you are about to make a major decision, maybe don't treat it as the end all be all, just like you don't when you type into Google and say, I found this spot on my skin and it's you're dying of cancer. You don't immediately jump to I'm dying of cancer. You go to your doctor.
Yeah.
I think it's a similar kind of situation. The Chat GPT and the frontier models are going to tell you, oh, it's probably or it could be cancer, or oh, maybe
Well, they can just
you
as
should
likely
take
look at
a
cancer
long
and
walk
say,
off a short pier and to solve this problem. And you need to think critically and say, the answer is unverified. It's interesting. Let's think about it and
yeah.
let's bring it to professionals who can help me.
Although to medical imaging specifically, there are advances in AI there, and it's not through LLMs. There, what they're doing is they would be training specifically on medical imagery with professional annotations to help accelerate like the role of a radiologist in diagnosing X-rays or microscopes.
Yeah, and they're going to get that will be built into the LLMs too, and they can already help you say, okay, these are the 5 or 10 things that thing could be. And as someone who Googled, do I have cancer back when I had cancer and got, oh, you have cancer, sometimes it's helpful to be concerned and go to the doctor. Now, the doctors, on the other hand, are going, this is all we're seeing is people who have a cold who went to WebMD and it said they're dying. So I think take it with a grain of salt. Don't be that concerned, but also go talk to a professional when it's doing some of these things. But I think finding that...
Yeah, don't be that concerned. But also the flip side. Just because ChatGPT says, oh, no, that's not cancer. Right. If you're worried, talk to a doctor. So we keep coming back to this. These AIs are really cool, but you got to remember it's like a really enthusiastic intern who has access to a huge library and unlimited time. They could probably solve some problems for you, but would you trust them with really crucial business decisions without verifying the work? No.
And they can I know plenty of business professionals that use these to ideate, to work out strategies, to do SWOT analyses, those sorts of things. And that's perfectly fine if you're then taking that as a first draft. And I think that maybe that's the attitude to approach anything that AI generates, is it is generating a first draft, and you then need to take and do the work to both verify that first draft isn't crap and then translate that first draft into a final polished product. And that's everything from your marketing to your business strategy. And I think the more concrete the deliverable, I want some marketing copy for my podcast episode, the more you can tune the AI to get it more and more right. Yeah. And the less concrete, I want a strategy for how to break into the shoe business, the more likely you are going to have to continue to iterate, and the less likely you are to be able to get to a point where it's giving you incredibly good advice. Because you imagine the context of generating marketing copy for our podcast episode, we've done 6 or 7 of these. There's a ton of podcast episodes. I've got a lot of context that I can then feed in to train it to get better. But the context of starting a shoe business, the amount of information it needs to know is so much bigger that the likelihood that it's going to get it right is much, much less. And that's the way to it's all about context.
It's about
comes
context.
back to context.
And remember, it's drawing from all the averages of everything. And this reminds me of something I think I want to talk about in a future episode. It's to really dig into agentic workflows, because we talk about, generating marketing copy. And you might be thinking, okay, there's a version of ChatGPT that I can go in and type in, ask it for this, and it'll do better than the generic one. And we've talked a little bit about that, like GPTs is the OpenAI's name for this. But really, sitting there watching it type out the answer while you're in a chat with a robot isn't the most productive way to use AI. And building workflows that happen seamlessly behind the scenes so that, like, when you get in the morning, that marketing copy is already waiting for you. That's like the next level of AI integration in your business. And that's the kind of stuff that we're really excited about internally, and we start to use and are building for our clients.
Right. And yeah, if you need help automating manual or repetitive tasks, things like generating your marketing copy so that it is ready as a first draft for you to then review and publish, go to modernlogic.io and you can scroll down. There's a contact form. You can chat with us, and we're happy to talk to you about whether these things are possible or not possible. To the episode, this was interesting. They got a lot more right than I think they got wrong, which is very different than the last episode 15 years ago of the SVU I watched, right? So they have at least come a certain way. They obviously made some affordances to cut some corners to fit it within their timeline and their windows. And I think they ultimately nailed the heart of the issue, which is, this is really ambiguous. The technology is powerful and can be used by bad actors to do bad things, and the law is not ready and society isn't ready. And I think we can focus on using these things ethically and productively as business owners, but as a society, we need to have a broader conversation about where these technologies fit. And I think you can't put the genie back in the bottle. There's also, if you have a teenager at home or a kid at home, educating them on these tools and the proper use of them and those sorts of things. So when your teenager sees a picture of a classmate in a situation that's obviously not real, they at least have a moment where they're like, is this AI? So there's a lot to be done on that side as well.
For myself, I've definitely been in for a long time, like, technology will save us kind of mentality. I love tech and advances, and I'm starting to flip more to a technology is going to give us really powerful tools, but along with that, we have to grow as a society and be aware of how to use them safely and correctly. And sometimes the solution isn't going to be tech. Sometimes the solution is going to be educating ourselves and each other. It's going to be about changing our laws, all of these things together to keep it so that we have a healthy society to live in. Great episode.
This gets at a future topic for us, which we will be covering, which is how to think about AI and ethics, or at least how we're thinking in this developing field about AI and ethics. And I think anyone that's adopting AI at their business should be thinking about, where are we using it, where are we not going to be using it, and drawing some of those bright lines in a way that I think we can take a stance on and communicate to both our clients, our employees, and the world at large. Because one of the things, we can't change the way the whole world is working, but we can change or how we relate to the ethics of using these technologies, and we can be a good example of what a good actor looks like. And I think a good actor is using the technologies to stay ahead of their competition and not using them in a way that, for instance, is smearing the competition, is perpetrating crimes, or making them look bad. I think there's lots of ways the technology can unlock amazing potential for your business, but it's so new that I think it behooves us to be leaders here, especially technologists, in putting forth a version of the future that we think is going to be a good version of the future to live in. Because of all the technologies I've seen in my entire life, this is the most transformative, right? The internet would probably be a close second.
Right.
We have seen the internet do wonderful things and do horrible things. And I think we need to look at the power that AI is giving us and help people make the right decisions. So maybe that's just the optimist in me.
Yeah, that's good. All right, well, this has been a fun episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I think that's it for us for today, and we'll talk to you next time.